All right, fact check this podcast and doing a solo show this week. I've got a couple things coming up. We'll have Mark Metz and I will be doing our review of Dune Part Two, either tomorrow or next Thursday, and then Don the Pleb and I will be doing the next Ways of the World next Tuesday, and then if we do the Dune review tomorrow, then next Thursday, Mark and I will be talking about Napoleon. And if we can't do the Dune review tomorrow, then next Thursday we'll do the Dune review, and Napoleon will be sometime later. He'll get pushed. But so lots of stuff, uh, lots of stuff coming out over the next couple weeks. But this is a couple articles that I had come across that sort of connect to each other, and it sort of goes back to the same theme as the last solo show that I did, where I was kind of talking about some of the dumb shit that women are kind of modern women are kind of doing, and not all obviously, but the mainstream perception of feminism has become a fucking joke. And some of the articles that get written about this stuff really emphasize the joke. And I like to look at this stuff and like kind of talk about it a little bit and give my opinion of it. Thank you. Yes, I always feel like I'm playing with fire on this kind of stuff, and also like there's a little piece of me that like in the back of my mind thinks, all right, this is going to end up being the one episode that my wife actually watches, and then I'm going to end up living in this garage instead of just podcasting from it. So we'll just cross our fingers that it's not. I thought for sure the last one, the gentleman, I regret to inform you that women, I thought for sure that she would see that show title and be like, what are you talking about, and check it out and be mad at me, and she did not. So if nothing else, I have learned that my wife will absolutely not support me in the podcasting venture in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and that works to my advantage. I can say whatever the fuck I want without fear of recourse. But without further ado, let's jump into this was an article from the Telegraph, and it was in the wake of the Barbie movie snubs at the Oscars, where the director and Margot Robbie, like, nobody won any awards. The only person involved in the Barbie movie to win any awards was Ryan Gosling, and it's like, which was just so perfect. But anyway, and I personally, so I think Mark and I might have talked about it a little bit when we did like the Longhouse episode. I personally enjoyed the Barbie movie for what it was. Like the version of feminism that they like sold in that movie was really shitty. Like for instance, after having watched the movie, my 18-year-old stepdaughter and I had a conversation about it, and she was like, if that's what feminism is supposed to be, I don't want anything to do with that. It's like, see, they made this movie where they went so far off the rails of trying to show like feminism as this empowering thing that they actually subverted their own message. And they also kind of created this modern day look at what men are kind of living through in Ken's version of reality, where he was really just kind of an afterthought, and all of the Kens were an afterthought. And then they have to they find it in themselves to step up and take control of their environment, take control of their society, and start to make something that actually works for them. And everybody was happy with it. And then you see feminism come step in and set all the men who were working together and creating a nice, good society that worked for everybody. The women then step in, and feminism pits the men against each other and ruins the whole thing. Like it's this perfect microcosm of what we've seen happen societally. And it's like, so the fact that it won no awards other than Ryan Gosling is kind of fitting and amazing. But there was also a lot of commentary that came out of that happening. And so then we get an article like this from the Telegraph. Liberal feminism has created a generation of blonde Napoleons. Oh, feminists, you only wish you could actually create Napoleons. But let's take a look at the article. Never has such a middling film generated so much press for a supposed snub. When the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences released its list of this year's Oscar nominees last week, fans of Greta Gerwig's Barbie were devastated to learn that the movie was rejected. Okay, so it earned 8 nominations, including Best Picture, but neither its leading lady, Margot Robbie, nor its female director, Greta Gerwig, received recognition. It's surely a loss for feminism. Social media accounts and op-ed pages across the Western Hemisphere exploded, with onlookers saying that considering Ryan Gosling received a Best Supporting Actor nod for playing Ken, life was imitating art, displaying just the sort of patriarchal nonsense lampooned in the movie. Gosling even took it upon himself to release an apologetic statement. There is no Ken without Barbie, and there is no Barbie movie without Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie, the two people most responsible for this history-making, globally celebrated film, he said. Of course he said that. He has to say some bullshit like that. You're required. You're required to say that. Globally celebrated here is the key point. Barbie received no shortage of press when it came out this summer, and it earned $1.45 billion worldwide, making Gerwig the first solo female director to pass $1 billion at the box office. Of course, all that didn't stop the peanut gallery from supplying their thoughts. Former Secretary of State and failed presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton tweeted, "Greta and Margot, while it can sting to win the box office but not take home the gold, your millions of fans love you. You're both so much more than Knuff." Hillary Barbie, hashtag Hillary Barbie. And Hillary would know a lot about taking home the box office gold, but not bringing home any of the actual accommodations for it, since she was touted by like 80% of the polls to beat Donald Trump hands down, and then ends up just completely whiffing. The hashtag. The hashtag Hillary Barbie that she puts on there is incredibly cringe. Like that. Man, I often see the things that are posted to Hillary Clinton's X or Twitter account, whatever you want to call it, and like I have to wonder if the person that they've got running this account, because it's not actually Hillary, like I have to wonder if the intern that's running this account is actually running it as a parody and hasn't told anybody that's what they're doing, because it's just so cringy and fucking stupid a lot of the time. To the comment, like, without Greta Gerwig it would probably be better. I think it was unintentionally really good. Like, I think the purpose that they went out to make the movie with and what the movie became may have been very different things, but I thought it was very good. Like, it's hard to go watch that movie. Like, I felt like you had to be going to that movie already pissed off at feminism and pissed off at the movie and thinking that, like, this is going to be terrible. I went in with absolutely no preconceived notions whatsoever. I went in like, all right, this is probably going to be goofy and dumb as shit, and I'm here for it. And it was wildly entertaining. And like I said before, like, the picture of feminism that it painted was not a good one. The picture of the patriarchy that it painted was cartoonish at best. And like, it was silly, and it was a fun romp. And I don't think it, like, set the patriarchy back, and I don't think it took feminism forward. It just was a goofy ass movie. And that's probably why it didn't win a whole lot of awards, because it was kind of a goofy ass movie. So, all this controversy, a word that seems to dignify the discourse too much, is indicative of a very particular, very white brand of feminism, of course. The defense of Gerwig and Robbie overshadows the Best Supporting Actress nomination of Barbie star America Ferrera, one of the few Latinas to be recognized in the category. Of course, it comes back to racism as well. It's not just patriarchy, it's also racism. And it's difficult to argue that Robbie missed out because of sexism when the other nominees in her category were all women, including Killers of the Flower Moon's Lily Gladstone, the first Native American woman to be up for Best Actress. So saying as long as you're a white woman, it's perfectly fine for you to not be up for any accommodations or accolades. You have had your moment in the sun, since they got the right to vote in the 30s or whenever it was, and for all the mistake that might have been. White women had their run from the point of the 19th Amendment up until I don't know, the last 20 years or so. Now it's time for women of color. So good job, white women. You got about 60 years in there. You didn't do enough with it. Too bad you missed your shot. Now it's time for all of the rest. Yet the success of Barbie, for some, has become a stand-in for the achievements of feminism. What achievements? We're gonna get to that, because this is where the second article ties into the first, because they talk about these achievements of feminism, and then you get the next article that we're gonna talk about. So bear with me on this one, and then we'll talk about the achievements of feminism and the insanity of that. I lost my place. Oh, yeah. So it's become an achievement for the stand-in of, or a stand-in for the achievements of feminism. Feminist satire site Reductress summed this irony up with the headline, "Why Feminism is Useless Unless the Feature-Length Toy Commercial Wins Every Single Oscar." Even by feminism's own supposed standards, such a reflexive defense of Barbie just doesn't make sense. Then why the outcry over two rich white women who can soak up their tears with the millions they've made from their summer blockbuster? For the answer, look no further than the reboot of Mean Girls, which also came out this month, last month, whenever it came out. Most millennial women can tell you the plot of the 2004 film that spawned a Broadway play and now a musical retelling on screen. Former high schooler Katie Heron enters former homeschooler Katie Heron enters public high school and is introduced to its weird and wild social dynamics typified by Queen Bee, Regina George, and her sidekicks. Regina's former friend Janice convinces Katie to befriend the mean girl as a prank, but instead of revealing Regina's pettiness, Katie embraces it. The brilliance of the 2004 film, which itself draws inspiration from the 2002 book Queen Bees and Wannabes, is that it is a movie by a woman, screenplay by Tina Fey, and for women. It so aptly depicts the way women can be uniquely mean to each other, as well as the ways they can mend their friendships in the end. There's no nefarious system, say the patriarchy, driving the girls to talk behind each other's backs or lie to each other's faces. It's just a thing they do. And this is the interesting thing about yes, also it was also a musical, which was a bizarre choice. The original was, I mean, even for a guy, I thought the original Mean Girls was good. It was an interesting microcosm, or look at the interpersonal dynamics of female relationships and why feminism doesn't necessarily work very well, because where in the Barbie movie, the Barbies get together to pit the Kens against each other. In the real world, it works the other way around. The Barbies would always end up at each other's throats, and you would end up with a Mean Girls scenario. Men tend to, if we have confrontation, it's usually a very physical, very brief confrontation, and then everybody gets back to work for the, towards whatever it is we're doing. Women do the conniving, behind the back, dirty bullshit, mean girls thing. And it's why feminism always seems to kind of fall short of whatever its goals are, without ever knowing what its goals are, because, women ask them what it is that they want, and they haven't absolutely no idea. It's, it's the, where do you want to go eat? Where do you want to go eat for supper tonight? They can't answer the question. They don't have legitimate, grounded, solid goals. And so feminism is always doomed to fail, because you're going to just end up with the cat fighting with no clear direction. So anyway, back to the article. Didn't mean to derail there. Fast forward to 2024, and the Mean Girls musical has a little more to say about the true meaning of girls' cattiness. Produced by Faye, this adaptation is aware that today's teenagers are looking to pin their social commentary on some sort of institution or ism, patriarchy or capitalism. Boys get to fight, we have to share, sings Janice near the end of the film. Here's the way that turns out. We always understand how to slap someone down with our underhand. Perhaps because Regina is meant to be more of a victim now, Faye in the new adaptation notably does not deliver the iconic line, "How many of you have ever felt personally victimized by Regina George?" Which dozens of the 11th grade girls raised their hands. In a conversation before the film's closing moments, Regina and Katie reconcile, agreeing that if Regina were a man, she would not have been seen as a bitch, but rather as strong. Wait, does that mean that the patriarchy made her do it? Or that the patriarchy just makes her look bad? Or both? If she was a man, she would have been viewed as strong. But also, if she was a man, the others wouldn't have tried to connive and go behind her back and stab her in the back and stuff like that. Men are, I think men, generally speaking, are better at recognizing and acknowledging who the leader is, and then getting in line with that leader, whereas women tend to be more whoever steps forward as the leader, everybody else now views that as the person that they need to tear down so that the next person can be the leader. There have been clips that have gone around of it, it was like a survival type show where they take a group of men and put them on an island, and they take a group of women and they put them on an island. And there are highlight clips of this where it shows the men are thriving and having fun and eating and drinking and hanging out. And it seems like a big party. And the women are all just lost and have no fucking clue what's going on. And they can't get anywhere and they can't get anything done. And they're starving to death. And it's miserable. And the part that gets left out of those clips is there was a brief moment for the men's camp where there's an establishment of the pecking order, and you figure out who the strong leaders are, and you figure out who the ones that need to be making the decisions are. And once all of that, it wasn't Survivor, but it was like Survivor. It wasn't a CBS. It was some other, it was a foreign network, but maybe the BBC or something, or an Australian network. I know they all had an accent, and it's hard to place where it was. But anyway, the part that gets left out of the highlight reel stuff is there was a time where the men had to have the establishment of their pecking order and figure out who was going to be in charge. But once that got sorted out, and once the cream rose to the top and you saw who are the strong leaders and who are the ones that need to be followers, then everybody got in line and it fucking worked. The women never had a leader. They always rotate through who's going to be making the decisions. And every time one of them kind of steps forward as the one who's the strong leader that should be making the decisions, then all the rest of them undermine her. There was one chick that kept trying to tell them, this is what we need to be doing. We are fucking this up. We are all going to fucking die if we don't figure this shit out. And everything they told that she would try to tell them, they would all work against her and not do it and turn each other against her. And then whoever rose to the top and would kind of be the one that took that power role in the women's side of it, the rest of them would all just work to cut her down and bring her back down. Like, yes, in other words, men organically create society. Like, you figure out who the betters are, who the best are. We're not all equal. And that's the woman brain thinking, is that there's like equality. There's not. That's a farce. Like, the idea that you're going to go into anything and everybody's going to be equal, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's where like they constantly are tearing each other down because they all want to be equal. But the only thing that you accomplish by tearing each other down to be equal is you all end up at the fucking bottom. Nobody rises to the top. It's why, like, you can't try to save a flailing, drowning victim, because they'll just drag you down with them. Like, somebody has to rise to the top. The rest that are just fighting and scrapping, they just drag each other to the bottom. And that's what, happens here. And so that's also what happens in like this liberal feminism that they're talking about here in the Mean Girls Society, and this, this new version of Mean Girls is, if you were a man, you'd been viewed as strong. Yeah, but if you were a man, everybody else would have seen that you were strong and gotten in line. In 2024's Mean Girls or Girl World, even mean, vindictive women are allowed to be victims, because in a certain flavor of liberal feminism, anything a woman chooses to do can be good, or it can be blamed on a hypothetical man. Barbie doesn't have to deserve all of the awards since it's so female-centric. Regina doesn't have to be a mean girl when she can be reframed as a blonde Napoleon. All of this contains multitudes of contradictions that leads to some women, actresses or otherwise, receiving little recognition at all. Ultimately, mainstream feminist discourse is subject to the attention economy. It's not the women who are the most talented or even the most underrepresented who get noticed. It's the ones that make the most noise. And that's why you see in this, what they talk about as liberal feminism, you don't actually see the best rise to the top. Like look at all the failures of female CEOs, CFOs, directors, female-centric movies and TV shows. It's not that they're being done well. They're not being done by the people who deserve to do them. They're being done for these feminist goals, for these feminist objectives, to make a thing that represents feminism, that makes men uncomfortable, that does all this dumb bullshit, instead of just being good. It's why the men's island figure their shit out, and they all work together, and they thrive, and they succeed, because the only thing that matters is figuring out the best way to survive. Whereas in the feminist side of things, the only thing that matters is everybody feeling recognized, and everybody feeling like they're equal, and everybody feeling like they get the same representation, and everybody having their feelings catered to. And that's fucking destructive. And it creates narratives like what we get in the next article, where for all of the supposed successes of feminism, they're still talking about shit like this. The gender wage gap is growing, and it bodes badly for American politics and culture. There is no gender wage gap. That is a objective lie. And I'll go through the article, but like this idea that there's a gender wage gap. Feminism has been a success, a smashing success. They've done all of these great things, right? So if that's true, if you've got women CEOs and women directors, and women leading ladies in movies and everything else, where's this wage gap? And yes, there is in fact a gender wage gap, but it's in favor of women. in the average, like the kind of jobs that women want, they make more money. The supposed gender wage gap is like average overall pay, which doesn't take into account the jobs that women absolutely do not want anything to do with. And offer any of these jobs that like construction work, there's a handful of women that do it. I understand. But generally speaking, it's not women. Working in coal mines, working in these like high risk, really dangerous types of jobs, working on oil rigs, like women don't want these jobs. This supposed idea of a wage gap, of a gender wage gap. They want to be paid to do a desk job the same amount of money that the guy working on high power lines that had to go through 3 years of training and jump out of a fucking helicopter gets paid. Like, see, that's where it gets back to that. It's not about who's the best and who should lead. It's about everybody having their feelings stroked. Women are destructive towards societal hierarchy because they don't understand that there is no such thing as equality. We are not equal. None of us, period. We're all on tiers. We're all different. And we all deserve to be treated as such, not to be treated as equals. That's bullshit. That's commie bullshit. So, the gender gap. For decades, we've seen so-called gender gap in American politics. On average, men lean more conservative than women on a host of economic and social issues, and as a result, more men have tended to vote, marginally more women have tended to vote Democrat. Among younger Americans today, it seems that this erstwhile gap is quickly becoming a chasm. See, this is this side of the gender gap is something that I really love. And it's also interesting to look at the numbers on this stuff too. Young men are skewing rightward and further rightward compared to the rest of the electorate than was true for older generations. Meanwhile, more young women are skewing leftward and much further to the left compared to the rest of the electorate than ever before. Men are not from Mars and women are not from Venus, but the deepening gender divide reflects that the partisan Republicans and partisan Democrats do increasingly inhabit what might as well be different planets. This polarization and its correlation with sex is constitutive of three problems in our politics that are creating even deeper crises in our broader culture. And before we get too much further, an interesting thing to look at with this, the women who are skewing so far to the left, once they hit a certain age and get married and start to settle down, then they tend to trend back right. So it's go figure, kind of like I talked about on the last episode, the last solo that I did. It's kind of a really specific group of women, young, single, college educated, that have like no future, that have gone to school and think that because they went to school now they just should have the world handed to them on a silver platter, that they should be paid the same as the high wire electrician or the coal miner or whatever else. And it's just so terrible that they can't make a living wage. And so they become fucking commies and skew to the left because they need somebody to take care of them. And they can't find a husband to do it for them. Amazing. Amazing, right? They want somebody to take care of them. Oh, nah. Anyway, back to the article. First, although American politics includes an ever-increasing number of independents, partisan political affiliation is now a much more strongly held aspect of identity. As New York Times columnist Ezra Klein discussed in his 2020 book, Why We're Polarized, our two major political parties have, over the past 40 years, become ever more strongly associated with various beliefs and markers of class, culture, and education. And this is where we're going to start to get into the separation of that men's island and that's women's island and how they behaved. As late as the 1980s, for example, there were many pro-choice Republicans and pro-life Democrats in Congress. Today, abortion is near ubiquitous litmus test for politicians in both parties, at least at the national level. When deeply held, culturally and religiously salient views on hot-button issues like this one acquire near synonymity. Gosh, I suck at words like that. Synonymity with political affiliation. That political affiliation itself inevitably takes on a deeper significance in people's self-conception and identity. Second, as each of our two dominant political camps develops an increasingly monistic attitude and culture, those identified with each have more trouble than they once did empathizing and cooperating with one another. I would argue that that's one side's fault more so than the other, but I'm not talking about partisan politics. Focusing on the gender gap right now. Maybe the two are connected. Actually, they are connected. We'll get to that at the end. As late as 2016, a minority of partisans deemed those in the opposite political party more dishonest, immoral, and unintelligent than other Americans. By 2022, majorities of those identified with each political party viewed those in the other party in these unfavorable terms. Moreover, the cultural gulf between today's Republicans and Democrats continues to widen. One can predict with a higher degree of accuracy, for example, whether a given area is predominantly Democrat or Republican by observing its density of Whole Foods as compared to Cracker Barrels. Cracker Barrel is infinitely better than Whole Foods. I don't give a shit what anybody says ever. I will take 3 Cracker Barrels on every corner before I ever step foot in a fucking Whole Foods. That sausage gravy is amazing. Anyway, third and finally, the disproportionate percentage of men in one of these increasingly insular and extreme camps and the disproportionate percentage of women in the other contributes to a landscape in which heterosexual Americans may find it more difficult to meet romantic partners who share their political and cultural values. This, in turn, furthers an already concerning decline in long-term partnership, marriage, fertility, and child-rearing that negatively impacts the nation as a whole. All right, we're doing it. The problem there is the one side, the women, these young college-educated women, create this driven by a need to push back against a patriarchy that doesn't exist in that manner anymore, to live this liberal feminism that they have to always be activists, that they have to always be fighting for something, even though the fight is fucking over, and they can just put their spears down and be decent human beings. They're always cranked up to 11. And they're always trying to be on the attack against men. And so when the average dude looks at that, they're like, we're already fighting this hierarchy amongst ourselves. Like, we're all figuring out who's the better, who's the worst, who should lead, who should follow, what are our roles in that hierarchy, how do we make this shit work? And then when we look across the aisle at them, and they're trying to fight us on the same shit that we've already figured out, but they're also fighting with each other. And we all know that it doesn't matter who rises to the top. They're going to constantly drag them back down. You're just like, yeah, I mean, fuck that. Why? Why would you actively engage in that? And so like you see these videos of these liberal women that are crying and complaining about how they can't find a date and they can't find a good man, and the only men who are actually worth dating are conservative, and so they don't want anything to do with those guys, and those guys don't want anything to do with them either. Yeah, because they see you as a hindrance. You don't bring anything positive to what they're doing. Like, every dude on that fucking island had a job, and they did their job, and they got shit done, and they thrived for it. If you think that your sole contribution is the fact that you went to college, and now you should just be paid to do whatever you want because you went to college, you are not a contributor. You are not bringing anything to the table. What do you bring to the table? There's this video going around of this woman saying, I'm in an equal partnership. My husband knows how to do the dishes, and my husband knows how to cook his own meals, and my husband knows how to put the kids to bed and fold laundry and blah, 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 blah. And it's all so fucking annoying and insufferable in her voice. She just, it's like fucking nails on a chalkboard. And it's like, okay, you contribute nothing. What is your purpose? You have an equal partner until this dude finally loses his fucking shit and snaps. Because this is not tenable. This is not workable. My wife and I, we have an equal partnership. We both go to work. We both have our own bills that we pay. We both take care of certain shit around the house. And if I can't get something done, she'll get it done. And if she can't get something done, I'll get it done. And if something comes up that she needs money, I got it covered. But at the same time, if something comes up that I need money, she's got me covered. We both contribute. We both work together on this. We talk about it. And she's never going to sit down and make a fucking TikTok video and talk about how I can fold the towels, because I don't fold the towels the way she wants it folded. I'm learning. I was told yesterday that I'm getting really close to folding the towels right every time, but I still mess up sometimes. I don't know. I just fold them, anyway. But we have a true equal partnership, and I never have to worry about her making some fucking stupid ass TikTok video to talk about it and tell all of these things in such a derogatory way, because she understands who the head of the house is and who's running shit. Like these liberal feminist types, they think that it's a constant power struggle. And that's not the way it works. You don't have to be fighting to be on top all the time. It's okay to just follow. And the thing is, they wouldn't know how to lead if you handed it to them and told them to do it. It's why you see over and over and over. I'm not going to actually finish this article if you hadn't figured it out. It's why you see over and over and over again. There will be a link to it in the show notes. You can go read the whole thing if you want to. I've kind of hit the bedrock of what I was trying to get at with this one anyway. Like it's why you see over and over and over again where these women are put in CEO and CFO positions. Chief marketing director for Bud Light. Like, how do you fuck up Bud Light so badly? Shit, there was one. It was like the first female president for Revlon or L'Oreal. I can't remember. It was one of the like women's makeup and that kind of shit. And within 8 months, she was resigning because the company was in free fall. It's like understanding the dynamics and the function of leadership roles and how to work with other people. I'm not saying that women are incapable of doing it, but men are a lot better at it. We are wired different. Men and women are wired different. And there are things that my wife does and knows that I can't fathom. She picks up on emotional, intuitive type stuff that I will never, with a million years of training, ever understand. It will always be foreign to me. I will always suck at it. But there are also plenty of things that if something breaks, I can just look at it and know immediately how to fix it. If there's a problem, I will solve it quickly and efficiently. We are intended for different purposes. And this whole idea of liberal feminism that everything needs to be equal is a fucking joke. Everyone needs to figure out what it is they do and fall in line. Like when we talked about the idea of the longhouse, like when you see these societies that are run by the den mother type, they're always really kind of seedy, and like there's not good power structure, or the power structure is always kind of in flux. Like, we need to have an understanding of what we do, a self-knowledge, self-understanding. That goes a long way. Watching the Barbie movie and seeing that once the Kens kind of took over Barbie Land, things were going pretty well. The women were happy. The men were happy. Everybody was getting along. It was great. Why can't we just work together, serve our purposes, do what we do well, and help each other out? But in a female hierarchy, there is none of that. You have to be constantly tearing each other down, and then we all drown, and then we're fucked. Feminism at its inception may have had some good points. Getting women involved in some of this stuff and helping them understand. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad time or a bad thing to understand the workforce and the workplace and what men go through all the time. But then what you end up with is it's unnatural for them. They don't like it. And then they form HR departments because they don't want the workplace to be what it is under men, like the man's island. That's how the workplace is supposed to be organized. And then you get the HR department, which is the women's island. It's why it's important for all of us, as I know I have a handful of female audience members, and that's cool. Love you to death. But for the majority of us as men, we need to have things that are for us. And if you are a woman listening to this, your husband needs to have things that are for him. Okay? And you need to find other women that you can have things with and be productive on your own, and learn how to get along and not tear each other down, and actually form community and society. Like men, like, you need to have your groups that do not include women. Period. It'll all work out better. And if you want your wives to be involved in something, stick them all together and let them be involved in something with each other, away from you and all of your male friends. Like, form societal bonds. Create the culture that will move us past this bullshit that is liberal feminism and the need for constant equality, and figure out how to actually build true culture and society that works for everybody. Because it can't be based on some equitable bullshit. That will only bring everybody down to the lowest level possible. It's time to elevate. And strong male leaders is how that happens. I got a little more patriarchal than I intended to, but it tends to happen from time to time. Hope you got something out of that. Hope you enjoyed it. I do highly recommend the Barbie movie. I thought it was entertaining, if nothing else. And in the meantime, check out the Dune movies, Dune 1 and 2, Dune Part 1 and Part 2. Mark and I will be recapping Part 2 sometime here soon-ish. Also tune in next Tuesday for the next ways of the world with Don the Pleb. Don and I are going to be talking about the wage slaves, the idea of going to work every day as being the modern slavery. So that'll be a fun conversation as well. Look forward to seeing all of you for all of that. And in the meantime, hope you have a great rest of your week, great weekend. Catch you next time. Later.